I'm from Gwinner.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I'm from Devil's Lake, actually.
Okay.
So, yeah, which actually, crazy enough, we were hoping to get you to tell us a little bit about yourselves, and I think I read somewhere you might be from Devil's Lake, too.
Yep, I'm from Devil's Lake, so.
No
Years
kidding.
ago, so.
How long did you live there?
Well, my dad was a family doc. He lived up there. I mean, I was raised there, and then I just went away to school. But when I came back professionally as a doc, I came back to Fargo versus Devil's Lake. Because in family medicine, I'm a surgeon, so family medicine really wasn't a place for me to be up there, but I could practice down here easily, so I came back here.
Sure. So what year was it that you said you got out of Devil's Lake?
67.
Cool.
67. Okay.
So you wouldn't have known me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Do we have some family ties back there or
Yeah.
anything like that?
We have a farm in Talna, so I go back every fall and hunt. So I go and hunt and
Really?
stuff.
Would you like to
Talna.
hunt?
Yeah. And my brother has a lake cabin on the Wood Lake, so I don't know
Really?
if you've been out there.
Oh, no. Yeah. Wood Lake that's kind of like, the pristine Devil's Lake over
Yeah,
there.
Yeah. So on 4th of July, if there's a fireworks display, that's my brother.
There you go. Is your brother older or younger than you?
2 years younger, but he goes to Indiana and brings a pickup truck back full of fireworks, and then he does a huge display at the lake. So
Any reason he gets them in Indiana?
that's where you can purchase them or something. You got to get a license to do fireworks, because theoretically what you could use them for. So
Well, if you got to get a license to get them, they must be pretty dang good.
it's pretty good. So.
So after Devil's Lake, then school. Obviously, you're a surgeon, so you had a lot of school. I saw on your resume it was UND, Harvard, Notre Dame. I saw you're a big Notre Dame football fan, I
Yep.
believe. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience, going from a North Dakota school off to schools that some of us have never get the chance to go to?
Well, it was really an interesting trip for me because when I went out to Notre Dame, we didn't have a car. You'd take the bus or train. So I basically took a train out there. My dad didn't know anything about it, but went right through the ghetto, Gary, Indiana, all those crazy places. I'm sitting there with a little suitcase going to school. It was a great experience because at Notre Dame you had a mix of everybody from all over the country, and you just didn't have necessarily that mix in North Dakota. And for me, it was just an eye-opening experience because I met people from big cities, small cities, all over the world, and just the ability to mix with that for me was just tremendous. The great, traditions that are out there, great things that happen, and so when we went out there. Got into a dorm and started working on campus life and different things. For Notre Dame, it's a campus experience. So basically, I bring it back almost like UND sometimes is that. The campus is really important for the student life, and you're just very much a part of that. And then you learn all the different traditions that are part of that institution. And you realize how much heritage it had and how much pride they had. So you would never miss a football game. You'd never miss, many of the things that went on during the time there. And it prepared me well during that time. We had Vietnam protests, things going on around the world that were kind of interesting. So at that time, Columbia was overtaken. The Columbia office of the dean was taken, or the president was taken over. And so Notre Dame students, we were protesting the war and said, oh, we'll take over our president's office. So we marched up to his office, and we'd seen it in the news, it was like this cool thing. The students took it over and put the flag up and did all these crazy things. And so we walk up to the door, we're going to try to protest, and the president steps out. And he says, can I help you guys out? And he said, well, we want to take over your office. And he said, well, come on in my office, let's sit down and talk. And I go, well, we want you to be against the war. He says, I'm against the war. I like peace. I like, And he turned it into a whole dialogue. So we couldn't say we took the office.
Yeah.
We could say we had a dialogue with the president. But it taught me how, you can tone everything down, just how you handle people or what you do with people and how you manage it. And he was a great president because he knew we were upset about it, but then he allowed the students to kind of vocalize. They had a platform. If the press wanted to be part of it, they could. But we didn't take the office. We just worked with him on that. And then he was very good about allowing the people to have protest to the war. It was
Very
coming from.
cool. As far as like, kind of diving into real estate here, obviously, that's what we do. So it's a huge interest to us. This was kind of just a hot topic. I'd love to just pick your brain on it a little bit. There was a deal with the property taxes. That's like a huge point for you guys, right? And I'm sure you've beaten this dead horse a million times, but what's your take on some of these new referendums that they're trying to push, as far as reducing some taxes or, changing some assessments on some of the homes, trying to lower them? What's kind of your take on that as far as like, if we were to do something like that, we're going to take away taxes from the rest of a growing city. How do you find how do you bridge that gap of, continuing to help the people and help the young people get into houses, but yet still have the funds that are needed for the growth?
Well, and I know it used to be a great time when you say an average house is 250,000. You could get a lot of people into that market. When the inflation went about, and we're up to 350, 400 for houses now, or your entry levels, which is really hard for kids to get into, right? I mean, it's a price that's too high. When I look at over the last 10 years, real estate's gone up at about 7% a year every year. So that it compounds it by your values going up. We were then tasked by the state is I have to stay within 90% of your assessment. So you guys are too young to remember this, but what used to happen is you assessed your house about every 5 years. So you basically would get a break for 5 years, right? You'd be assessed full value, and then it would sit there for 5 years at that value. So then even if your value of your house went up, you could sell it for more, you were only tax assessed that. Now we have to stay within 90% every year, so people will get a little bump or a little bump. Well, I look at it this way, in a sense, that 7% every year, it is in addition to your payment, and it's something that goes up. We have a legacy fund that's almost $10 billion. Wow. If I took and said, I'll pay 7% of your tax and keep you flat, that's only about $250 million to the state to do that. So I do think that the state has to do something to help keep those real estate taxes so they could be reasonable. The state gets into this argument is that, well, Tim, you'll spend all the money you get, or you'll be foolish about it. It's not really that. Our salt goes up, our chemicals go up, or different things go up. So the city's always chasing inflation as well. So it's always really hard if you say, well, cut back your budget, and you have to still do the same services. I can't always do that in a growing population. City of Fargo grew by 20% in the last 10 years. That's a lot of growth, but that's a lot of roads, that's a lot of streets, that's a lot of things you have to do for that. So in my mind, the property relief, I would like to see it come from the state, where you could decrease the amount. I'd like to see some program for first-time home buyers. Can you buy down some of the costs? Because that's part of what keeps them from getting into a home, right? Mm-hmm. Is you don't accumulate 20% of the value of the house to put away and then buy the house. And I remember when I bought my first house, the interest rate at that time was 20%. Would you buy a house today with a 20% mortgage?
No.
We're complaining about 7.
Yeah.
And you guys are bringing that resistance to buy a house. But there's no question in my mind, if the state has money available, let's see what we can do for property taxes, because let's go to the fixed income person that's sitting there in a fixed income. And if you're going up 7% a year, in 10 years, it's going to be hard to afford that house. So I very much hope that the legislative body will do something to help relieve the property tax issue.
Yeah, had you heard much about that legacy fund? I hear that all the time. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like a big hot topic for the whole state of what to do with that money, North Dakota oil money, and just figuring out how to distribute it. That's got to be a challenge of its own, like kind of what you described. So
well, it keeps growing, and then the question is, how big do you want it to grow? So when we're at $6 billion, we're kind of one thing. Then it's $8 billion. Mm-hmm. Now it's I think $11 billion right now, wow. And it takes 60% of the people to change where you spend that money. So it's really hard to pull the money out of it. But Alaska did a thing. They had a legacy fund in oil. They gave everybody a check for $10,000. Well, that kind of went, everybody got their check and didn't really help anywhere in infrastructure or anything else. So the state has that quandary of how do you take your savings and help distribute it around the state. And then the second issue you get in young people, you guys are in real estate, if they're in an apartment, it doesn't really affect them, right? If they're in a house, it affects them. But you want them to move out of the apartment into the house, but you've got to have either a motivating monetary factor on that, because there has to be something that makes it better, right? Because if you go out of apartment off on your $1,100, you go into a house, you're going to be at $1,500, $2,000 in your monthly expenses. And can you jump that? Can we get to that jump? And that's where I feel the challenge in the young people is how can we get it so housing is affordable and we can build something that people can get into. And then you're off and running, right? If you get your first house, you later sell and get a different house, you're kind of in the game a bit and do those types of things. And when you get my age, I can downsize and go to a smaller house.
Yeah. So what's next for you as far as your term is coming up in 2026, I believe? Do you have any ideas on, you want to retire? Do you want to do something else?
It's always hard for me because there's a variety of different things I might want to get involved with. And
Yeah.
I look at the former mayor of Furnace, and he's in a variety of boards and a lot of functions that he's doing. So I'd probably look for, so my quest all the time in my position is, can I be an impact player? So is there something that I can quote impact and make something happen? And that's what I really would seek out, something where you could make a significant difference. We're sitting here on Block 9. This took 3 years to negotiate to get this thing to happen, but it's a total change of the downtown.
How much did the city have to involve? I thought this was a Kilbourne RDO. What did the city have to do with this?
So the city owned the parking lot. So we owned the parking lot and helped build this parking structure, which RDO is buying or paying back for us, but we bonded it first and bought it into it. And then the park board and the city worked on this Broadway Square area as well. So it was actually it was private-public partnership that made this thing happen.
Wow.
Well, you wouldn't know that because we're kind of hidden underneath it.
Sure.
But we also gave some tax increment financing, which helped them get over the hump to build the place. So.
It does say RDO on the tower up there, so I just figured out
Yeah.
that, oh, I guess Mr. Ronnie Offit owns the building.
Yeah.
Well, Ronnie came to us and they were going to build somewhere. And then the argument was, do you build on the fringe or you build downtown? And then I believe there was a company in Kansas City that built downtown, and he saw how much that transformed the area. So I had fun with him when we did the groundbreaking, because when we did groundbreaking, the taxes that our parking lot gave us was $45,000. When all the TIFs and pilots are done, he'll be paying $1 million in taxes. So I said, thanks, Mr. Offit.
Thank you for your donation.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, that's got to be so fun to, you know, even if you're kind of behind the scenes, but to be involved with so much of this construction. I mean, this is obviously a huge accomplishment even for you in the city of Fargo, but I feel like you probably get to see a lot of stuff firsthand, even before kind of the general public. We got to ask Denise this yesterday because this was such a hot topic. Did you get to know about the Target store before it got announced in South Fargo?
Do I have to tell the truth?
No.
Usually we know things are coming
Yeah.
a lot of times. Sometimes we can't say anything about that. A Target's been looking for a long time to get into a different place, and you know, a lot of your brains and my brains, that's a perfect spot, right? But that's where we anticipate that would go. So we're pleased that that's come about.
Okay.
You had
very
mentioned
cool.
that the rec center. I go there a lot. I play sports there every week, which has been phenomenal. That place is incredible. Do you know how long that was in the works before it even came to groundbreaking?
So that took about 5 years to evolve. So what happened is Joel Vettel, when he first became the park board director, thought of this idea of doing a foundation and doing the park board, because you kind of think that, well, people might give it to a park system, right, because they like a nice park system. And the cost of it, I think, is $120 million, but they raised $40 million in the foundation. So that really was a different concept, because before it would be the park board would just go out and build it and the taxpayers would pay for it. So that was a great, again, private-public partnership, let's do that. So Joel kind of had the idea, and then it transformed as it went forward. And I have to tell you, it also transformed size. So
It's massive.
yeah, it started kind of small, and then as they started to get into it, it's just all the different amenities that you need to have in it. And the police chief was just talking to me, they had a tournament last week, and parking was all over because people couldn't find places to park or whatever. And they've told us that this will be one of our biggest drawing things in the community.
It's been incredible for me. I love it. There's basketball, hockey, just having the ability to go use indoor tracks and fields. I mean, it's huge for the
So
community.
it's changed your winter, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's going to change your winter.
Yes.
And that's what I love about it, because young people have no excuse not to be able to exercise.
Absolutely. Yeah, the half and the full marathon are coming up, which I'm going to do. And every night you just see marathon runners going around and around. And it's just cool to see in the wintertime, you go to a family center and you go on a treadmill, which isn't so fun. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to transform the community. I think it's really cool.
You know, when
So-
you had stepped into politics all those years ago, did you ever imagine the city would grow like it did under your watch? I mean, I've only been in Fargo 7-8 years now, but I even look at just 52nd and South, or even you go to 32nd and South. It's every time you drive by it, there's just something new going up. I mean, how has that been for you to just watch that grow? And you're like, oh my gosh, I have something to do with this.
So when I started in 2005, our average growth for permits would be about 250 million a year. If we hit 250, we were really excited. Sanford built its big hospital. That was $1 billion we did that year because that's 500 million when they put that in. And then we've been running anywhere between 700 and 850 million a year in growth in what I call permits. That just means physical plant or growth within the community. Maybe 200 homes, 250 homes, kind of those types of things. So yeah, no, it's been a roller coaster for me because it's just been really fun, and I watch the permits every time to see what's happened. And then the other thing you got to do is you got to drive around, right? Because you'll be like, I didn't know that was going there. I didn't know this new restaurant came. I didn't know this happened. I used to try to go to all the new restaurants. I take it a little bit more slow now, but just to get to all the different places. And then I'm sure you guys are too, you're kind of intrigued with, how did this business evolve, or why did this come about, or who? I never would have thought of doing that. And if you look at Veterans Boulevard, all the little sub-like lots where you can drive up around a shopping little mall, basically all the way along there. Never would have thought that would have been a viable kind of option, because you always thought West Acres, that's what you got to build. But no, people build little shops, and people like little shops. And then the other issue is where are all the people coming from to take care of, to buy things, come downtown, to do different things. And that's the other great thing, because downtown, we wanted that to grow. And downtown is growing by 5,000 people. And I know it's a growth, right? Because I see people walking around with dogs. Basically, you have neighbors now in this area. And the downtown feel is different. I think young people like the downtown feel. And it's just now the different neighborhoods we have and different things we've had. So to me, it's just, when somebody turned to me and said, Tim, we've grown by 20% in the last 10 years, yeah, that kind of feels like we have. But it still feels safe. It feels still small town in a way. And I can walk into any variety of shops. I know who I am. I know who they are. And I like that small town feel.
Yeah, that's great.
So as being mayor, the question you didn't ask me is where I get my most feedback. And where I get my most feedback is a grocery store.
Really?
Yeah.
Really, people recognize you there?
Well, they'll recognize me, and I always know whether I'm doing good or bad of how many people approach me. So, and it's always a funny question too. Say keep up the good work, and you're kind of tempted to say, okay, which part of my work are they seeing?
Sure.
Because I kind of like to have that little nuance, And oftentimes it's no, just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing okay. And that was kind of during COVID and different times things would happen. So we're in the middle of COVID, nobody's touching anybody. We're all wearing masks and we're walking around. I walk into a grocery store and a little lady 50 feet away starts walking towards me as fast as she can, comes up to me and gives me a big hug. And in COVID, you just never did that. It was like, don't hug me. But I laugh about it. It's a small town feel.
Yeah, head on a swivel at the grocery store. We're watching out for the mayor. The only permit we're going to have to give you a hard time for, maybe before your term ends up here, you got to figure out how to finish that water park down there on 45th.
Okay.
I saw in the news the other day the permit expired, and I thought, no, not the water park.
Yeah.
Had you heard any update on that, on if someone was going to pick that development up? That was such an interesting deal. It's all gossip that you hear. So, we don't know any more than anybody else. But, yeah, that was kind of a crazy downfall of that whole deal.
Well, there were a lot of doctors that invested in it. They liked the water park for whatever reason. I don't know how that had happened. But I saw the list of all the investors that went into it. There's a lot of people I knew that had got invested in it. And I hope it comes back. We haven't heard anything from the investors where it went under. So if you hear or I hear, I'll tell you. But I'd love to see that come back.
Wow, you got to see the list, huh? That's the real gossip information, to see the
list. Yeah.
That's what we're all wondering. We're like, who's going down on this ship? So,
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, hopefully they can
And
pull
some
something
more
together.
golf courses, right?
Yeah, that's the other
With the
thing
growth,
too.
these golf courses are getting booked up quick. So I'd love for some more golf courses.
Are you
Really?
Are you a big
Yes.
golfer?
I'm a moderate golfer.
You go.
So,
Yeah. Where do you like to golf at?
I like the public courses. I like a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I used to be in the Fargo Country Club, and I realized I wasn't golfing that often.
Sure.
So public parks are great. And
No, the
Favorite
Creek
course
is
if you were
great.
to pick out of the 5 Fargo public ones, if you were to pick your favorite.
Edgewood is a beautiful one.
Yes.
That's what I really like.
Yep. Yep. I love Edgewood.
I
Rose
can't hardly
Creek.
go there. I end up losing my ball, and there's too many trees for me. I end up going in there.
Yeah, there's some great courses. Rose Creek is super nice. Prairie Wood is a nice 9-hole course just to hop on. I know you said you golf there a little bit, but
Yeah, I like Osgood to drop on just 9-hole, and it's a beautiful course, and it's just funny the houses are so close, seem to.
Yeah, they get a
When
little
I'm
nervous.
driving, they seem close.
Yeah, they get nervous when we're up to the tee box.
yeah, right. Well, we want to be respectful of your time. If you could leave us with one last tidbit, maybe giving some advice to guys like us or people that are listening, we kind of attract a younger audience, just starting out their careers, starting out life. Is there one thing in particular that you would say you can do as a person to improve?
I'd say just get engaged. Whatever you do is get engaged in something, because you can make an impact. And I'm always looking for people in a sense that could impact or change some things that happen. And so my example is this: is you're in a coffee shop and somebody comes in new, and a lot of times you walk over and say, "Hi, how are you? Where are you from? What's going on?" I heard so many people that came to me and said, "Tim, I've never been in a community where people reached out and tried to make me feel part of this community, where they, and the story I'll tell you is I was recruiting a neurologist one time as a physician, trying to get a neurologist to come here. And I'm in he's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we're Saturday morning to try to go over his contract. And I going over the contract, and here's what we're offering, all this. And his wife started to giggle. And I said, "I don't understand why you're giggling." And she said, "We already put money down on a house." So it didn't really matter about the contract. I said, "Can I change the contract here or whatever?" But they loved the place so much, and it was really not time that I had spent with them, but when they were on their own and went out in the community and met people, they felt the community reached out and kind of wanted them to come to the community. Yeah. And I think that young people understand that, take the risk sometime, but you can make a tremendous impact on people. And then the other thing I loved is when we ever did the Million Cups, a new business would come up and explain, "Here's what my business is, here's what I can do." And Greg Devine would ask the question, "Okay, gang, anybody, can you help them out? Could you do different things?" And maybe it's taking your business card and handing it out, or, had a good experience like that. But the ability for us to help each other out, become successful, that's what I think is a great thing about our community.
Thank you. That's amazing advice, and more simple than it really has to. I mean, it's so easy to just get involved and do what you're going to do.